in honor of Coming Out Weekend, which is this, I'm going to talk about the culture of drag this morning. Every social movement has its own in-jokes, its own language, its own songs, its own sense of injustice, its own framing of the world, its own sense of what's to be done, its own infighting. And the things that need to happen for a social movement to gain power is for there to be a sense of, this is who we are, and this is what we're angry and sad about, and now we have the power together to do something. And in the drag culture, a lot of that is expressed through songs. There are songs of heartbreak, and songs of anger, and there are songs of, here's who I am, and I'm going to be free, and then there are songs of, we're powerful, and we can do this. I Will Survive has all of those things in there. At first I was afraid, I was petrified. Keep thinking I could never live without you by my side. And then I spent so many nights thinking how you did me wrong, and I grew strong, and I learned how to get along. I Will Survive, which is an anthem for so many people because we all go through that same evolution when we've been feeling squished, right? So you feel squished, you have to find a language to talk about that squishedness, and you have to find some people to talk about it with, and then you have to find your power to do something about it once you understand how to talk about it and what to do. So this morning, I want to give a salute to the drag queens who are the big-haired, heavily made-up mothers of the LGBT liberation and freedom that we have today. It's done, right? We have all the rights we need. I mean, I checked yesterday. There's still some we got to fight for. So drag is cis men, that means men who were born male, dressing up as women for the purposes of entertainment. Kind of. Well, sometimes they dress up as parodies of women, just in order to give homage to the signals of femininity that our culture has created, or to mock it at the same time. So the hair reaches up to the ceiling fan because the higher the hair, the closer to God. We all know that. And the heels are tall. And the drag queens can be tall, too. So drag queens who are 6'4" already and 6-inch heels are Amazonian. Very impressive. And very skillful not to break something. But sometimes a drag queen will dress in torn punk clothes, and sometimes you'll be in drag with just a few elements of female apparel and other elements that are not. And sometimes drag means a cis woman, that means a woman born biologically female, dressing up like a guy. Sometimes to the addition of stubble and a pipe, and sometimes there's eyeshadow and stubble and a pipe and tight girl pants and boy shirt, and all of this is to say, what are girl pants, and what is a boy shirt, and what is girl, and what is boy, and it shines the light on the fact that a lot of that is biologically driven, and the rest is made up. And that there are many more than just two genders. We don't need to be so binary in our idea of you either got to be a man or a woman, and there's nobody who lets you be either a third or just somewhere in between, kind of sliding around depending on the day. A PhD thesis that I studied this week for this sermon by a woman named Elizabeth Kaminsky analyzes drag culture as a community, an oppositional culture organized both to light up and make fun of and educate about how politicized and what a performance gender is in our culture. In the bad old days, which ended, last month or so, speaking hopefully, you could get thrown out of your family for being gay. Even now, 40% of street kids are there because they're gay or transgendered. If you're a gay teenager, you're 3 times more likely to commit suicide just because this preference you're born into is not made to look very attractive by the culture you're in. It's not so bad here as it is other places, but it's still not as fabulous as it should be. So the way to go is to have a chosen family. This has been happening for gay people for a long time. You choose your family. You just make a family out of the people that you love. If you don't have a biological family, and sometimes you have both, a bio family and a chosen family. A lot of drag queens are brought into the drag world by older drag queens. Sometimes you need a place to stay. There's a woman who has, a drag queen who has a house, and you might be in the house of extravaganza, or the house of Givenchy, or the house of Lanvin, and a lot of them are named after designers. And she will be your drag mother, and she'll teach you how to do drag performance and how to do the makeup and how not to look ridiculous and where to go in drag and where not to go in drag and who you can trust and who you can't trust. And they're just like real families in that there are rules and there's drama and there's betrayal and there's jealousy and there's cattiness, just like a regular family. Not all gay people know about drag. And I want to tell you that, in case you don't know, which you probably do, that drag and transgender are 2 separate things. Transgender is a person who's born in one body, assigned a biological gender at birth, but inside feels like another gender, either the opposite or just another, and begins expressing the true inner core of themselves. Now, a trans woman is going to want to look kind of like a regular woman, as beautiful a woman, of course, as you can, as we all try to do. But they're not doing it for the entertainment. They're not going to exaggerate, and this is not a political statement. It's just, hey, I'm a woman inside. I'm going to look as much like a woman as I can. Or I'm a man inside. I'm going to look as much like a man as I can. I'm not mocking. I'm not doing the drag king thing of, the drag kings have this swagger and this, how you doing? Which is interesting to men, just to see what women see as masculine and what we tend to imitate when we're being masculine. So there's a little overlap between transgender and drag, but not a lot. And I could be wrong because I'm an outsider to the culture. Drag expresses community. And a drag show makes a free space for an oppressed group of people. A drag show makes a space where you can experiment without apology or approbation, where you can go and not be judged, at least by outsiders, because you're going to be judged by every other queen in the room. And the songs help with transformation. And the songs express, as I said, the outrage, the pathos, the heartbreak, the joy, the transcendence of your authenticity and finding a place where you can have the community that you heard in the readings, where we give each other light and where we know each other's names and where we welcome one another home. And the drag show is not just for gay folks, it's also for the heterosexual community too, to go have an experience of a certain kind of gay culture where you go in there and you hear the language and you think, oh, well, that's different. I wonder what that means. Just like, when everybody meets someone who knows sign language, they want to learn the cuss words right away. You go into a drag show and you want to go, oh, I suddenly want to say Shantae and sachet, and I want to say you better work, and I want to say all the cool things that the drag queens say, because it makes me feel like an insider, even though I'm really an outsider. But the drag culture says that once you've come to a show like that, once you've had the experience, you are not going to be the same person after that you were before. Drag queens have to be tough, and it helps if you're funny. When you're a kid, if you're a gay adult or especially a gay adult who likes to do drag, you've been beat up quite a bit as a child. You've been bullied quite a bit. And so you know that a drag queen is going to be tough as nails because they know how to take a beating, and they know probably how to fight. And they know how to joke their way out of a situation. And they know how to be sad. And they know how to be happy. I want to tell you a little bit of gay culture. You all know about the Stonewall Riot. In case you don't know, I'm just going to tell you a little bit. Stonewall Riot happened in 1969 at the Stonewall Inn, which is a bar owned by the mafia who didn't care who was in there. And so there were gay men, gay women, butch lesbians, women dressed as men dressed as women, men dressed in leather, women dressed in leather. Everybody was in there. And the police raided regularly because being homosexual was not only a sin, it was a crime. And it was a pathology. You could get thrown in the mental hospital. If you came out in the 70s, even, you could get thrown in the mental hospital if your parents wanted to take it that direction. So the police raided one night. And instead of just running, something snapped. The people who were there that night say, "We just got mad." And people have different accounts of who threw the first punch. The lesbian community, of course, says it was a butch lesbian who threw the first punch. The drag queens say it was a drag queen. Transgender folks say, well, it was a transgender person. So, but who knows who did it? Apparently, a drag queen threw a brick through the window. Apparently, a butch lesbian punched a police officer. Apparently, everybody spilled out into the street. The police lost control of the situation because suddenly it was not okay to be beat up for being gay. It was just not okay anymore. And so people began actions in Greenwich Village. After that, there were organized groups that would make free spaces for people and negotiate with the police, and I'm not going to say it got all better after that. But I do want to say this. Social change happens in a lurching kind of pattern. It's not steady, steady, steady goes. It's not respectable kind negotiating that makes things change. It is a terrible event, a violent event, or a strikingly impressive event, followed by a negotiation, followed by other stuff. You have to have a collective identity that can be developed. You have to have an idea of what is wrong, an idea of what needs to happen to make it right. And another thing that I have not heard sociologists talk about, but I'm sure they have, because if I've noticed it, I'm sure I'm not the only one, is that there have to be at least two branches of every social action movement. You have to have the respectable, ready to negotiate people, and you have to have the scary people. So in the women's suffrage movement, you had to have the women who were willing to be chained to the White House fence, annoying Woodrow Wilson, and being thrown in jail and being beaten by the police and going on hunger strikes and being force-fed. And then you had to have the respectable women who would say, "Isn't it a shame that they don't know how to negotiate nicely? But if you don't negotiate with us, you're going to have to negotiate with them. Which would you rather do?" You have Martin Luther King, Jr., and you have Malcolm X. And you have President Johnson going, "I think I would rather negotiate with the minister than talk to that scary guy." But I don't think that Dr. King would have been invited to the White House if Malcolm X hadn't been there in the wings. And I'm sure Dr. King never said, "If you don't negotiate with me, you're going to have to talk to him." I'm sure he never said that out loud, but it's underneath. Same thing in the Black Lives Matter movement. People tisk about the folks who say violent things. I think the Black Lives Matter movement has been very, very restrained. Much more restrained than the suffragists were, but who knows what will happen in the future. But there are also the scary disruptors And there are the more respectable people who say, oh gosh, wasn't it a shame that they stopped traffic on 35? Wow. Yeah, but if you don't talk to us, you're going to be dealing with them. This happens. And so there were plenty of respectable gay people that had been trying nicely for social change for a long time. But after Stonewall, after the police turned around expecting to be able to go the other direction from the rioting crowd and found themselves facing a line of 6'4" drag queens who were mad with bricks in their hands and hair up to here and 6-inch heels, they were like, oh, no. Then the respectable folks could say, deal with us or deal with them. Yeah, exactly. One song performed in drag is called What Makes a Man a Man. If you can, just go to YouTube and try to find it. It's sung, you see a woman in front of you, and she's singing, I live with my mother in an apartment, and we sew together, but I sew better than she. And then the next verse, the wig comes off, and they talk about performing. I perform downtown in a little club, and then the pads come out. And then the other pads come out. And then the dress comes off. And then you see in the verse which says, I change my sex before your eyes, what makes a man a man? It makes you question how much of gender is biology and how much is performance. I remember being coached on gender performance. I remember learning to drive. And I bet there's not a person in the room that hasn't been coached on gender performance. I was learning to drive. I'm turning the steering wheel, wrestling it, and then my mother says, oh, no, honey. Like this. Ladylike. A drag show is a place where there's free space for an oppositional culture to be created, where heartbreak can be expressed. I want to end by singing you a song I wrote for Coming Out Day long years ago. It's called The Beauty in You. It asks you to stand at the end. It's not stand up if you're gay. It's stand in solidarity. Linda Eldridge is our signer. Kaya Hartwood, my wife, is our band. How long has it been since you knew your situation? How long after that till you understood? How hard did you pray to make it go away? It was never a part of anybody's plan. How hard did you work not to tell your mother, 'cause you hated the thought of seeing her cry? You would rather say nothing than do her any harm. So you paid for her innocence with lie after lie. I sing to the beauty in you, to the light in your eyes, to the pain you disguise, your broken heart. I sing to the beauty in you, we will not lie anymore. You got your hand on the door, let's make a start. How long did you wait to tell your father? How closely did you watch his face? Did he close it down? Did his eyes grow distant? Did he take it all on as his own disgrace? I sing to the beauty in you, to the light in your eyes, to the pain you disguise, your broken heart. I sing to the beauty in you. We will not lie anymore. Got your hand on that door. Let's make a start. How many times will you have to tell it? How many friends just fade from sight while the preacher, he thunders about sin and damnation? How many sad midnights did you fear he was right? I sing to the beauty in you, to the light in your eyes, to the pain you disguise, your broken heart. I sing to the beauty in you. We will not lie anymore. Got your hand on the door. Let's make a start. Stand up. We will stand with you. Stand up. Pain you disguise. You are your broken heart. I sing to the beauty in you. We will not lie anymore. Got your hand on the door. Let's make a stand up. You are stand with you. Stand up. You are stand with you. Stand up. You are the light in your eyes. Stand up. To the light in your eyes, to the pain you disguise. You're broken. We will not lie.